the sort action. You may rearrange objects in the same level at any time, except with division. So once again, we come back to our zoom levels. We have an equation, which is an expression equals an expression. And expressions are made up of terms that add or subtract, they combine with each other, and terms are made up of factors that multiply or divide by each other. Knowing that, we are then able to rearrange things. So let's look at our zoom levels over with our example here on the right. So we start with an equation, 4x plus 9y equals 3 times 5 minus 2x. So first, we separate out. I'm just using spaces here. There's no requirement. This is just a visual thing, like a visual aid. That's all it is. So we have our expression on the left equal to our expression on the right. Now, this double slashed line down here is something I invented because I haven't seen anyone else use it, so it doesn't seem to get in the way of anything, and it's clear enough and simple enough for the students to use. So this is an exercise I will often have them do, which is to divide expressions into terms. And I'm saying divide, I probably should use the word separate. Clearly delineate where the terms start and stop. And so we have 4x, that has to be a term. You can't divide it, you can't separate it in between there because they're multiplying each other. It's like a tight bond. But between terms, we have adding or subtracting, and that's a loose bond, and that enables me to separate it, and so I put my made-up term separator in there. So it's clear that I know that the student knows where the terms start and stop. So you'll notice that every term starts with a sign. It could be an invisible plus sign, but there will always be a sign there because there is no multiplying in there. And we don't, even if we had a 4 times a negative x, like what I'm drawing in there, well, that times sign still keeps the 4 tightly bound to the x. And we know it's not 4 plus or minus x, it's 4 times. So we're not ever going to separate there. So a term will always start with a sign, and then when the multiplying or dividing is done, we move on to the next term. Let's look at the right side of the equation and at this expression over here. 3 times 5 times, no, divide, nope, we're going to combine. It's 5 minus 2, 5 subtract 2, 5 add a negative 2, whatever, however you want to call it, we're not going to multiply or divide the 5 and the 2. It's combining. So I put a term separator in there. 3 times 5, stop, negative 2x. The terms start and stop there. And we can see this quite clearly when we use the dots in here. This isn't an exercise I usually have students do. I'm just trying to make this plain here. Maybe it should be an exercise students do, but I've never felt the need for it from what I've been able to see. 4 times x, 9 times y, 3 times 5. We're just showing the factors, our negative 2 times the x. So factors multiply, terms combine. So now we can come down here and do some sorting. Now that we know what we have, we're able to sort what we have. So here's our original equation. 4x plus 9y equals 3 times 5 minus 2x. And now I can, on the equation level, I can sort, I can rearrange, I can reorder my expressions. Obviously, left equals right, so right equals left. That's all I've done here. It's just flip the sides, mirror image. So that isn't all that useful, but I'm just demonstrating you can do it. Okay, now within each expression here, notice that I have reordered, I have sorted the terms. For whatever reason, this is the way I want it. You know, I've taken them out of alphabetical order, which again is a good habit to stay into, and I put them in non-alphabetical order, or look at this as the beginning, and then I put them in alphabetical order if I go backwards up to the top. You know, whatever the reasoning is, you can see it's permissible. I can sort my terms because combining has no order to it. So again, here, my negative 2x, I've sorted over here. The 3 times 5 went from the first position to the last position, no problem. Now within my factors, 4 times x is the same as x times 4. 9 times y is the same as y times 9. 3 times 5, 5 times 3, 2x, x2. That's not x squared, that's x times 2. That's not a superscript. So, again, that's all there is to this. Probably, if there's anything quote-unquote tricky, it is just being able to separate your terms. That is usually where students have the hardest problem. And they want to start doing something with the x and the 9, and no, you can't just take part of a term and do something with a part of a term. Those things have to stay together as packages, and then the whole thing gets rearranged. The entire 4x gets moved from first to last, and the entire 9y gets moved from last to first. So zoom levels itself and being able to separate terms, that is probably the biggest key with sorting, because sorting is used a little bit. Quadratic equations, for example, we will put them in alphabetical descending order, x squared x, plain number, for example. But otherwise, sorting is pretty simple, and it doesn't come up super often. But again, keeping things in alphabetical order is always helpful, and that requires sorting.